Hi, I'm Michael Caju.
And I'm Adee Caju, and you're listening to the WAG podcast. This podcast is about health, wellness, and personal development.
Each episode is a short conversation between Adee and I on a single topic with actionable steps. We cover everything from food, mindset, fitness, and relationships.
We started WAG because of the way health and fitness changed our lives, so we hope to share a tool or two that helps you along your way.
Hey, Adee.
Hey.
Welcome, y'all. Thanks for joining us today.
Shai is still with us today. You might be able to hear him. He also wants to talk on the podcast.
He's got some sniffles, some farts, so I hope you enjoy all of those. Today, we're talking about a quote that it's pretty great, and I think Adee made it.
I know,
up.
we doubt it because it's so good.
We've searched high and low, and we can't find any other source. I think Adee created this.
Let's just say it was me. Let's stop saying I think. It just was me. No longer are we going to say I think that Adee created it.
I think I'm just envious.
Yeah, so don't, be envious, but let me have full credit for coming up with a badass quote.
So the quote is, "What saved you no longer serves you." And today, this episode is a little bit different than our typical shows where we give action items at the end of each. This is a little bit more of just a mindset shift. So we'll explain what we think this means, and you can interpret that quote however you like. And then at the end, we'll tell you what we think you might be able to do with the information.
But first, before we get into that, the last episode that we just did was talked about all about creating a success map and the things that are working for you right now, remembering them so that when things aren't going well, you can revisit those things. This episode is kind of a little bit of the opposite. So what we're talking about today is that when you hit a plateau or you may regress or where nothing seems to be working, you've tried all the things that used to work for you and none of those things are working for you anymore. This is when what saved you or what helped you in the past may no longer serve you anymore. So it's kind of the opposite of what the next step from last week's episode.
And human beings, we have such a hard time sometimes realizing this fact because there's something called the consistency bias. For instance, if I've considered myself a vegan, bless you, little man.
Whoa.
So if I've considered myself a vegan for 6 years and I've told everyone in my life that I'm a vegan, I'm posting about it on social media, I have t-shirts that are like, hashtag meat hater or whatever,
oh my God.
It's become a part of my identity, and to change that means changing my identity. It changes, at least in my perception, how people perceive me and what they think of me potentially, and we have a really, really hard time with that. And
that is one aspect of it for sure. And I think human beings as well, from working with thousands of people get attached to something that worked for them. So a diet that worked for you, or a way of being that worked for you, or a friend that was beneficial to you. We get super attached to those things and we can't understand why it isn't working anymore. And we end up in this loop of, well, it used to work for me, so it should be working for me now. I don't understand why it's not working for me. I'm going to keep trying and then failing over and over and over again. And we're going to give I think the best way to understand this is in an example. So we're going to give a bunch of examples to try and illustrate what exactly we mean here.
Yeah, one of my earliest examples of this is I got sober in 2008. And for 5 years, I was, as intensely as I trained in CrossFit, I trained myself in recovery. I went to at least one AA meeting a day. I was in therapy. I lived and breathed recovery. And at some point, I decided that I just couldn't go any further in my life with Alcoholics Anonymous. And what had saved me, which is AA, in large part, no longer served me. I wanted to be surrounded by people that were happier and more growth oriented. And in the meetings that I was going to, I was not surrounded by people that I wanted to be surrounded with anymore. And I decided to take a different path. And it was super scary. And
probably the scariest example we have.
Right.
Is
it was
that.
very, very scary. And I battled with that consistency bias of, you know, considering myself a gung-ho, like AA member. Like I had to tell all of my friends in meetings that I wasn't going to meetings anymore. And it took a big leap of faith. And this is now 8 years later, or no, like 6 years later, and I'm the happiest and most fulfilled that I've ever been.
And that's definitely a more serious example, which I think is a really potent one that can illustrate what we're talking about. And I think a lot of people can relate that are listening, that were part of an organization or a group that really, really worked and helped you grow and that you just kind of grew out of. I want to bring it to something maybe a little lighter. And another example that really helps is, let's say, for example, you are following a ketogenic diet and you lost 50 pounds with the keto diet, or 30 pounds, whatever. You lost a lot of weight. You feel amazing. You've never felt better. And then all of a sudden life changes, or you keep going on with your life and it's no longer working for you. Maybe you gained some weight back. So you've done keto in the past, you've gained back 20 of the 30 pounds that you lost, and now you're trying to do keto again, but for some reason it's not working the way that it did before. It's harder, you're binging more often, you're cheating on your diet more often, you're not being able to find the food options that you were able to before, and you just keep trying to make keto work, but for some reason it's not working the way that it was before. And in those moments, so many people are just convinced that this is how I lost weight before, therefore, this is the only way that I can lose weight. And what saved you no longer serves you applies in that scenario, where just because keto worked for you before doesn't mean that it's going to work for you now. And I love the ketogenic diet. So I'm not even one of those people that's like, I don't believe there's any one thing that's going to work for you forever. So this is just the way to help you move through things quicker instead of getting stuck in this loop of, I'm just going to keep trying keto even though it's not working for me the way that it was before.
Another personal example for me is CrossFit in general. Like in 2009, when I found it, I was so bored in my fitness and really in life in some ways. Like I didn't have any compelling goal. And I found CrossFit, and it gave me a way to stay in shape. It gave me a community. It gave me goals to strive towards. And I got so into it that I competed at the games. And fast forward 10 years, and it just doesn't, doing a lot of CrossFit workouts each week just doesn't feel right for my body anymore. And so I do a couple, and then I fill my fitness time with other things. And for all of the same reasons as it was hard to kind of move away from AA, it's been hard for me to start to even consider exercising a different way or moving a different way.
Yeah, 100%. I've watched you through that. Another personal example for me is going from weighing and measuring my food to eating a little bit more intuitively, where for my entire athletic career, being a weightlifter, weighing and measuring my food was the best way for me to make weight and perform my best at the same time. It also really helped me learn a lot about my food. This is what our business is built off of. I learned so much about my food. I learned how to get rid of the moral aspects of, this food is good for you, this food is bad for you. I realized that I can have things in moderation. I got control over my nutrition, but then we went to Europe for 2 months, and it was like, I don't want to weigh and measure my food while I'm here. That isn't going to serve me while I'm traveling. During my pregnancy, it wasn't going to serve me to weigh and measure my food. And I had to come to terms with, okay, weighing and measuring my food is not serving me right now, and I have to actually let it go, and I have to build new skills. Doesn't mean that those skills are not going to be there anymore, but yeah, it was kind of hard to transition away from it because I had these moments of, oh my gosh, I didn't measure this. Can I even eat this right now? Am I eating too much? Am I eating too little? caused me a little bit of distress. But on the other side of that was more success and more progress than I've ever made.
Mm-hmm. What do you think people can do with this information?
So we're all bound to hit plateaus when we're progressing towards anything. That's just part of the journey. You're going to be trying to reach a certain body weight or a certain body composition or achieve a certain athletic goal or some goal in your career, and you're going to hit a plateau at some point. And while last week's episode can really help you if you're going through it, maybe like reassess, am I doing all the things that I used to do to help me be successful or keep me happy or whatever it is that the goal is? But if you're doing those things and they're not getting you the results that you're looking for, be curious and keep trying new things. Of course, give it a solid shot. Not like, oh, I tried it one time. I followed this diet for 1 day or 2 days and it's not working. If you gave it a solid shot and it's not working for you anymore, don't get stuck in the attachment to what saved me currently serves me. It might not serve you anymore. So I think it's just a mindset shift, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Hope this was helpful, guys. Have a great day.
Yeah. And wait, before we leave, if you're going to use this quote, you better give me street cred for it.
That's right. All right, y'all. Later.
Thanks for joining us. Stay in touch by signing up for our newsletter at workingagainstgravity.com or on Instagram at workingagainstgravity.
And don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes, leave us a 5-star review, and refer a friend. We'll be back next week with another episode. Talk to you then.